I don't know what's gonna happen, because I mean, if you think about it, unless this was all a dream, like the last 6 episodes were an actual dream, because the title is Wakey Wakey.
Looks like somebody's having a bad dream.
Don't Hug Me I'm Scared is a strange web series here on YouTube that presents itself as a children's TV show, with 3 main puppets learning a new lesson every episode through song. But by the end of each episode, it turns into a horrible nightmare. So many people, including myself, have covered this show and given our own interpretations on what we think it all means. But while most of our theories are different, the vast majority all focus around one theme in particular: the media.
The media.
The media.
The media.
The media.
The media.
Media.
All popular theories believe that Don't Hug Me I'm Scared represents the media brainwashing kids at a very young age into thinking a certain way. Corporations fund these kids shows and interfere with the creativity of the creators, ultimately ruining their show. This theory has become such a huge force in the community that almost no one ever questions it. Even when the final episode came out back in 2016, instead of looking at the new episode and asking if the theory still holds up, people just molded the new episode in a way where it would fit the theory. Looking back, it's something I did without even realizing. I was so convinced that the idea was correct that I was never able to look at the new episode with an open mind. But 2 years have passed, and now that I'm older, I feel I have a much clearer mind. And, not too long ago, the channel has released a teaser trailer after 2 years of silence, promising new episodes to come in the form of a TV show, which slightly contradicts some of the morals the media theory had, meaning chinks in the armor are starting to show, and people in the community may be finally starting to question it. Well, almost everyone.
The duck is Donald Trump.
Yes, MatPat has made a video covering this teaser trailer, and he's made 2 previous videos covering the original series. Both of them are the most viewed videos covering Don't Hug Me I'm Scared, and talking about the media theory. There are so many people who really believe this theory to be true.
But hey,
That's a good theory.
Now that he's laid out the theory in that way, I get it.
Honestly, for me, this was spot on. I really think he's figured out what they were going for.
Oh my gosh. Okay. It makes sense. If it makes sense, and I respect them for that shit.
Looking back at those 2 videos and other theories of the media, I don't agree with that at all. In fact, it has just as many flaws as any other theory. But because so many people have seen this theory and have believed it for so long, I feel that I can't present a new interpretation without having to address this theory. So that's what I'm going to do. In order to present something new, I'm going to have to debunk the old. Before we actually address the things pointed out in MatPat's video, I think the best thing we can do is look into the background of Don't Hug Me I'm Scared and see if there's any kind of connection to the media theory. The best way to do that is look at the creators themselves, Becky Sloan and Joseph Pelling. What do they think of the media theory that appears in every single forum that talks about Don't Hug Me I'm Scared? Well, they've never actually addressed a specific theory before. In fact, they've openly announced that all theories are correct. That's probably not the best way to start a debunking video, but let me explain. In an interview on metro.co.uk, Becky and Joe were asked,
"Have you read any of the fan theories about this series? If so, have any interpretations taken you by surprise?"
"We have read a lot of theories online about what it all means, and they are all correct." Joseph Pelling also elaborated on this during their time at VidCon 2016. The duo were invited to a panel, Art on YouTube, and at one point during this, Joe replies to a fan after they asked, "What are the misconceptions about art?"
I guess the idea or the notion of understanding art is something that maybe we don't really think about very much. I don't think that all art needs to be understood or people interpret it in completely different ways. And the way we sort of think about it is that if people think about what we do and it comes across in a certain way to them, then that's correct. To them, that's fine. And so they will have their own different interpretations and they're all sort of equally valid.
Joe believes that you can interpret art however you want, even if it's not what the creator intended. Whatever your interpretation is, that is correct, to you. I personally like that message, and I don't doubt for a second that Becky and Joe believe that, but I find it rather strange that before the media theory appeared on forums, videos, and started dominating everyone's interpretation of the show, the creators were very open of what the show was actually about. In fact, Becky and Joe pretty much explained what the first episode means back in 2011, before the whole media craze even started. An interviewer on motiongrapher.com asked the creators if Don't Hug Me I'm Scared had a deeper meaning.
I've been internally debating whether the video is subversive or just merely disturbing. Do you have any opinions on that?
I don't think we aimed to make a comment on creativity, but we wanted to make light of how creativity and self-expression is basically something very difficult to teach. Creativity is almost always associated with progress and healthy positive expression, but in actual fact, you can get creative with a hammer and a cowpat. So the whole idea of the first episode was to just poke fun at how absurd it is to try and teach something like creativity. You can't just tell someone that a certain colour isn't creative, because that's just not how creativity works. As you read this interview, you begin to realise that the whole puppets on a kids show was just a secondary thought to the creators. It was never intended to be critical of kids shows.
Why are the creators of the show so cynical about kids programming? Are they trying to say that there's some big conspiracy behind kids' TV shows? Well, yeah, actually. Definitely seems that way. Dig a little bit deeper and there's evidence that the show's creators are railing against not just kids' TV, but the makers of kids' TV and what their goals really are.
I understand that a lot of people, including myself, suggested that the creators are cynical towards kid shows, but this interview gives me the complete opposite impression. In fact, Becky at one point tells us that she enjoys educational kid shows, after being asked if there were any children's media that inspired the show. We did look at a whole range of educational kid shows that involve craft making or puppets, such as Finger Bobs and Heartbeat, which are both amazing. It's hard to make a film with Muppet-style puppets without referencing kids' shows, but we knew we weren't trying to make a deliberate spoof, and that's why we had to make it very weird. At the end of the day, Becky and Joe just wanted to make something with puppets, as they continue to express in this interview how much they love arts and craft. I used to work at kids camp and developed an obsession with the different types of fun craft. As a child, I used all types of craft to express my emotions and inner feelings. The puppets were a good way to combine all the craft stuff into a story, and then that's when we wrote the silly song. We had talked for a while about doing something using basic craft artwork, like googly eyes and glitter, and making silly portraits out of tissue paper, which we both find very funny. So, in short, there was no true story for this first episode. It was just to poke fun at teaching creativity, while also doing something weird with puppets. You might be suggesting that the media theory came up somewhere after the first episode, but it didn't. In fact, the media theory started cropping up somewhere at the end of 2011, but only by a select few people. The theory's popularity, however, started to grow once it surfaced on YouTube during 2013, as a couple of channels started covering it for their videos. So basically, people were already making theories about the media brainwashing kids based solely on that first episode, even though Becky and Joe had already said there wasn't much to it. So does that mean all future episodes don't have a meaning behind them? Well, no. Joseph Pelling did step forward in a future interview and actually confirmed later episodes did take on a more narrative approach, and according to their Kickstarter, they promised that everything will be revealed. So if the media theory isn't what the series is about, then what is the real story? Well, I think the final episode answers that question. So, in short, film theory claims that episode 6 is a sequel to episode 5, but then randomly jumps into a prequel of episode 1 before then jumping into a metaphor for the entire series before jumping back into a sequel, claiming that makes more sense than any other theory. I think we're all overcomplicating this. Because every episode had a lesson to teach, like creativity, time, love, technology, or healthy diets, we all seem to look at the final lesson of the show as just that, another lesson, despite this being the final episode.
How can you be sleepy if you don't know how to have dreams?
Dreams. Listen to the lyrics when the song finally begins.
Dreams are movies that live in your head.
Dreams are movies that live in your head. This is the first line in the entire song. At the exact same time, we see a camera projecting a dream onto the yellow guy's head. But not only that, this exact camera has been filming other episodes of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Film Theory has pointed out these cameras in his theory, claiming that this proves this is all just a children's TV show. But what he doesn't mention is that all the cameras have eyes, just like all other objects on set, meaning the cameras aren't real. Even in episode 1, when we get a 360 view of the whole set, we see that even the boom mics and the clapperboards are all alive. The reason these cameras are there are to symbolize that this is all just a movie playing inside someone's head. And isn't it interesting that the lamp is singing about dreams, and all of a sudden we transition to the red guy waking up almost as if he was dreaming about the yellow guy drowning in oil.
Can you file these files, please?
Isn't it strange how the Don't Hug Me I'm Scared world is made of felt or plastic? Everything around the set seems to be fake. All the objects seem to be alive and have googly eyes, including the cameras that are filming the show. And yet, when we cut to Red Guy waking up at his job, everything is real. His clothes, the computers, the scenery, even the aspect ratio has changed, almost to symbolize that this is the real world, and what we saw in the past 5 episodes were all fictional movies taking place inside the red guy's head. And to further prove my point, in the scene where the red guy performs on stage, he pulls out 2 puppets on his hand, the yellow guy and the duck, hinting that they're not real, they are part of his imagination. Although Roy, yellow guy's father, does appear in this particular scene, but this spotlight randomly appears on him, meaning this is most likely a hallucination that the red guy is unintentionally creating after being humiliated on stage. Film Theory tells us this is Roy seeing Red Guy on stage and decides to hire him to work on a TV show. But if Roy represents corporations like Film Theory suggests, why does he hire Red Guy after he gets booed off stage? MatPat tells us that corporations like Roy only care about popularity and money. Red Guy clearly isn't making much money, and he very clearly isn't popular. Roy hiring Red Guy completely contradicts his theory that corporations are evil and only care about popularity. Plus, if Don't Hug Me I'm Scared is about the media brainwashing you, why do all the red guys boo him and think the song is terrible? Wouldn't they be enjoying it if they were brainwashed? Red Guy is singing the creativity song from episode 1, which is the same song that tells you green is not a creative color. So you can't tell me it's a freedom song that represents expressing yourself, because it does exactly what all the other songs try to do. The song is trying to hold you back from truly being creative and thinking for yourself. You might say that these red guys haven't been brainwashed by the media yet, but if that's true, isn't that going against the whole idea that everyone has been brainwashed by the media? In the next scene, we see a big machine that everyone calls the media machine. This is said to be a metaphor for the whole series and shows us that Red Guy was somehow hired by Roy and is now working on the TV show. But Film Theory tells us Red Guy left early on after episode 4, but here he very clearly makes future characters that appeared in episode 5. Why was he able to make episode 5 characters if he left the show in episode 4? Plus, Roy appears and almost gestures towards the plug, almost as if he's telling Red Guy to pull the plug. Why would he do that if he's this evil corporation? And if you don't believe that part, Red Guy even takes his time and makes it very clear that he's about to pull the plug. Why wouldn't Roy stop him? He's about to destroy the entire show. After that part, Film Theory suggests that this is a happy ending, as it represents the creators being free from large corporations, and they are free to make their work with lower budgets on the internet. If that's true, then why is Roy still there in the corner while the credits roll? Not to mention the creators have announced they're making some kind of TV show for Don't Hug Me I'm Scared that is funded by several corporations. That goes against the entire moral of the theory's ending. Plus, Becky has said in earlier interviews that she would like to make the switch of Don't Hug Me I'm Scared to TV, and that was in 2015. So, to summarize, I don't think this theory holds up. I do think each lesson is some kind of commentary on the world around us, but the story and hidden meaning has nothing to do with the media. In fact, I think Don't Hug Me I'm Scared is about growing up and learning to let go of your childhood. We can already establish from episode 6 that this is a world created by the red guy, and the two puppets are most likely his imaginary friends, since they are just puppets in the real world, but yet they are alive in his imaginary world. This imaginary world is the mind of a child. If you think about it, that's why words are spelt wrong. That's why teachers don't know what they're talking about, because they were created by a child. The child is the red guy, and he doesn't want to grow up, because adults are boring.
You know, it did it like a song. No, that sounds really boring.
How did I come to this conclusion? Well, last year, a TV show called The Amazing World of Gumball premiered an episode called The Puppets. In this episode, the two main characters find their childhood puppets and decide to travel back to their imaginary world that they created when they were kids, which has a similar style, if you ask me. They soon find out the puppets were mistreated when they were younger, and now the puppets plan to punish them.
We'll see if you break when you bend. The fun will never end.
Sound familiar? The entire moral of the episode, however, was about learning to let go of your childhood and move on. Obviously, you're going to be asking, how does this random episode of a TV show connect to Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared? Well, if we look at the credits, it was written by Becky Sloan and Joseph Pelling, the creators of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. But even though this episode premiered in 2017, it was actually written in April of 2016. A tweet by the creator of Amazing World of Gumball on April 28th, 2016, announced that the creators of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared are in the writer's room, almost 2 months before the final episode was released. So when they wrote this episode, the story of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared was still fresh in their minds. Think about it. If most of the people who've seen your show didn't pick up on the message you intended, wouldn't it make more sense to tell your message in another show that can explain it in a much clearer way without any risk of telling your fans that their interpretation of your old show was wrong?
That's correct. To them, that's fine.
And if you compare this episode to Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, the similarities are quite strange. Even all the way to the position the red guy is holding his puppets on stage in the real world, and how they're both alive in his imaginary world. I think the whole series is about the red guy refusing to grow up. June 19th is most likely the red guy's birthday, his final day before he transitions from a child to an adult. When episode 2 was released back in 2014, Becky and Joe also released another short they made called Craig's Big Day. According to Becky, back in 2014, this is the TV show that the three puppets were going to watch at the start of episode 2.
We only have 5 minutes until our show's on.
That's not enough time!
If we watch Craig's Big Day, it's about a man called Craig doing strange things for his birthday. And his birthday just so happens to be June 19th. And that's not the only time they've made a reference to birthdays and June 19th in their work. There was an old music video they made in 2013 that also had June 19th, and it was also circled as a birthday. And not only that, if we look at the calendar's cover, we see 3 balloons: red, yellow, and green. This easily connects with how the Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared series keeps making references to this date, while also hinting at the theme of parties throughout the whole series. In episode 2,
there's a time and a place for mucking around.
In episode 4, where a robot voice tells him he's not invited to the party.
You are not invited to the party.
And episode 5, where the steak guy talks about being invited to a party.
And so is invited to stay for a party.
Yay! Even the teaser trailer for episode 6 was party themed. In contrast to this, Film Theory claims that the date is 19th of June 1955, and the date actually refers to when the British television channel ITV came into production. However, if you make that connection, you have to completely forget that June 19th is even a part of the date. A quick Google search tells us that ITV launched on the 22nd of September of 1955, 3 months after June. If that's what the creators really wanted us to connect it to, wouldn't it make more sense to have made the date 22nd of September 1955? He mentions a few other things that took place around that time, for example, a law that was passed and the Queen's coronation, which is obviously supposed to strengthen the connection, but everything he mentions took place in either 1954 or 1953. Yes, the year is highly likely to be 1955, but I think it's for a different reason. On that particular day, it was Father's Day, which is something Film Theory did actually bring up, and I actually agree with him on that one. The last episode of Don't Hug Me I'm Scared was also uploaded on Father's Day, and Roy, the big supposed villain of the whole show, is a father. Being a father seems to be another recurring theme throughout Don't Hug Me I'm Scared. But why? Why is birthdays and being a father two recurring themes throughout the whole show? Both of them represent everything about growing up. Birthdays are a sign that you are getting older, and a father represents an adult. When you're a father, you have to be responsible, independent, and reliable. Roy goes out of his way to demonstrate he's not a kid. He's a backer of the show, as we see his name in the credits. He has his own business like Roy's Flakes and several other things. He's even caught watching porn from time to time. Roy represents everything Red Guy doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be an adult and have a boring office job. He wants to be a kid and explore the world with his imaginary friends. This is why Roy is presented as a villain in this world, because he is inside the mind of Red Guy. The world around him despises him, so it's not surprising that he's placed in a bad light. I think Father's Day is the metaphorical look at this date, but the literal sense for the story's lore, it's Red Guy's birthday, the day before he became an adult. After he realized he was no longer going to be a child, he ran away to his imaginary world where he made time stop on June 19th, so he couldn't get any older. He has been missing ever since. The Red Guy is trying so hard to not become an adult, but no matter how hard he tries to fight it, his taste in everything is changing. He can't help himself, and so he begins to say things that only adults would say.
I use my head to express myself.
That sounds really boring. That sounds really boring.
He no longer wants to go on adventures and would much rather sit down and watch TV.
It's time to go to time!
But we don't really want to. We're going to miss our show.
The third episode seems to be about the yellow guy, but if we pay attention to the background, Red Guy is there watching along. He's just choosing not to join in. After episode 4, however, Red Guy finally decides to leave his imaginary world and travels back to the real world. And Roy just so happened to be watching him as he left. Episode 5 doesn't have Red Guy on stage, but he very clearly is still watching from the outside, meaning he still hasn't let go. And we get to see how his imaginary friends react when they realize their friend is gone. We cut to episode 6 and we see Red Guy trying to fit into society, but all the adults around him are boring and dull. He tries to get others involved by singing the creativity song, but because they're fully grown adults, they find it stupid and boo him off stage, causing Roy to appear from Red Guy's subconscious, suggesting that it's time to move on. Red Guy refuses, most likely due to his humiliation, and decides to hide away from reality in his mind once again. The next segment in the story, with this big machine right here, is Red Guy trying to relive his childhood fantasies. You know how you look back on fond memories and then you try to relive those memories, but they never turn out as good? Well, that seems to be what Red Guy is doing here. He's trying to bring back his old imaginary friends and add new ones, but it goes all horribly wrong. That is before Roy appears and reaches out to him. Roy is reaching out to help him. Roy is basically telling him it's time to say goodbye to your old imaginary friends. You need to pull the plug on this whole thing and fully let go. This is why Roy doesn't try to stop him. It's something the Red Guy has to do. The ending represents a cycle. The fact that the notepad began to sing shows us that it's happening all over again. However, 19th of June changes to the 20th of June. As you can see, the characters are different colors, meaning this is not the same person. This is someone different. The fact that they are all their favourite colours from episode 1 is most likely just an Easter egg, or it could be looked at as a representation of how we sometimes pass our views and interpretations onto a new generation. Red Guy is an adult now, and his favourite colour was blue. Therefore, he passed his views onto the next generation. So yeah, to sum this up, this is another child about to go through the same lesson Red Guy went through. Roy appears in the corner while the credits roll, symbolizing that you can't run away from growing up, and we all have to face him someday. And then we move on to the teaser trailer that tells us Don't Hug Me I'm Scared is coming to television, or some kind of streaming service, who knows. So what is going on in this particular teaser? Well, according to this article, Becky and Joe have only filmed the pilot episode, so everything we see in the teaser trailer is just footage of one episode. So it's impossible to say what the entire series is going to be about, but from what we can see, this episode does seem to be about safety, with security cameras, locks, keys, all that kind of stuff. But my guess is the storyline will have been resolved by the end. Then episode 2 will most likely be a completely different story and lesson, just like the original series, except these episodes will most likely be a lot longer and with a much bigger budget. Film Theory made a video talking about this too, but he kind of missed the information where the creators said they've only made one episode. So a good portion of that video doesn't really age well with this information. Plus, a good portion of his theory is relying on his previous theory to be correct too. This new season, or whatever you could call it, is definitely not a sequel to episode 6 from the web series. As we see June 19th in the corner in one of the scenes, the characters are their original colours as well, so there's that. So this will most likely be a prequel that shows us some of the puppets' older adventures, or it'll just be non-canon and its own separate entity. At the end of the day, despite what I've said, if you still believe the media theory makes sense, then that's perfectly fine. All I ask is if someone brings a new interpretation to the table, then don't just discredit them straight away. There are problems with all theories, but there can be some times where we take a theory as gospel against any other interpretation, without realizing what's wrong with it. That can sometimes be harmful, because the reason we make theories is to start a conversation about something we love, not to end the discussion entirely. So with that in mind, I highly encourage you to make your own interpretation on this show in the comments below, and for any other future topic I might cover. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.